Ryan, where's Rose?
She's in some places.
Yeah.
She's not everywhere, and she's been like removed from some places, but she's shown up in others.
We'll talk. Okay.
Rose, it's weird. What's going on? Where is Rose?
Yeah, where is Rose? So there's an article we'll link to from /film, but if you've been on Twitter this weekend, you've probably seen the hashtag and a lot of people talking about where's Rose. I think it's a legitimate issue. I think it's a problem because Rose is a great character. It doesn't seem that she's being featured in a lot of the merchandising and things like that. I don't know, man. It's I think it's one of those situations where, to me, the Where's Rose situation is like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, a little bit of column C, as most things are. You know, it's not all one thing. I think without a doubt, whoever's in charge of marketing for these different companies is deciding that Rose is not as marketable as other characters, and so she's not being included. And I think that's, not cool. Obviously, that's pretty bad on a couple different levels. One level being that, she's an Asian woman, and there's probably some racism and bias and stuff as far as like not including her for that reason, feeling like that's not marketable or, whatever. So obviously that's super problematic and awful. I think another factor is The Last Jedi trolls and people who vocally didn't like The Last Jedi. A lot of their ire was focused on the character of Rose and on Kelly Marie Tran. And so some of this could be caving to those voices. And I think that's equally awful and stupid. I think another issue is that she's probably not a huge part of the movie. And so, if you're going to feature 4 to 5 characters in a piece of art or on a t-shirt or a poster or whatever, and she's one who's not as focused on, then I think, it's likely that she would be one who's not featured for that reason if she's not super in the movie or not a huge role in the movie. But, I don't think that's like necessarily the primary thing or the main reason. Like I'm not saying that, suggesting that the things I already talked about, the bias and racism and, whatever else, caving to ugly voices. I think that's probably a bigger factor than the size of her role in the film. But I do think that like contributes to the overall phenomenon of Where's Rose. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
I think it's a mess. I think probably like the biggest thing that felt like a slap in the face to a lot of fans, and specifically with women of color who identify with Rose, is that original promo image, which we've talked about. I said I bought the poster, I bought the shirt. So that original promo image had Rose in it initially, and then she was replaced by Claude. And so like I think now my feelings are mixed on this. I love Rose. I love Claude.
Yeah.
This is putting me in a very tough place. I love the design of this image as well. I think it's perfect, cheesy, photoshopped together Star Wars movie marketing. I love this stuff. And I think it's awesome that I have a t-shirt with Claude on it. I think it sucks that Claude is there in place of, a woman of color, and who is probably going to have a more important role in the film than Claude. I know we all are rooting for Claude, and hoping he's the one who sets things right and saves the galaxy. But in the end, it's probably going to be Rose. And I think even just aside from Rose being you know, um, so like representative and important to so many people. I think like she also has arguably the best line of dialogue in every Star Wars film, like in Star Wars in general. She for sure has an iconic line of dialogue that I think represents a lot of what Star Wars is about and what the sequel trilogy is about. And so, I mean, I think she's like ultimately going to be a like historically a very important figure in Star Wars. Just I mean, based on Last Jedi, and obviously Rise of Skywalker. I think there's going to be a lot of conversations about screen time for certain characters because this is going to be a movie with a lot of characters, a lot of new characters, a lot of returning characters, and it needs to, still be focused on the two protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I think, like, there's going to be some disappointment around screen time for characters. And I think that's inevitable, and I think that's just it's just the way it's got to be. So it's so I think where I'm kind of at with this, like there's a lot of examples. Like I saw in person the the Rebel shirt, which at one point had Rose on it, but then I saw that shirt at Disney store and Rose was no longer on it.
Okay, so I got to jump in on this because this like to me is like a perfect example of why this like this whole issue is complicated. Because I saw Anthony Bresnikan tweet about this issue last night. Like he was tweeting about where's Rose and like supporting that movement or cause or whatever. Those words are probably a little too strong to describe where's Rose, but the hashtag and the whole situation. And then like he tweeted out a little bit later, like specifically with that example, because he showed that as one of the examples of, or maybe Jenny Nicholson did, but of one of the examples of like, hey, she was on the product and they removed her, and it's like you can buy that T-shirt, like both versions of that T-shirt exist that can be bought, and so it's like one of those things where I think a lot of people jump to the conclusion immediately, like she was on there and then through some vast conspiracy to eliminate Rose from all marketing, they took her out of it. But it's like, and I do, like I said at the top, I do think that is an element of what's going on. Is like sometimes people that are making these decisions are thinking, no, she might not be that marketable. Let's take her off. I do think that happens. But then like I'm looking at this example. I don't know if you saw this thread that I put in here from Brian Rude, who's one of the official, artists or whatever. And I'm looking at this tweet thread where he's like, okay, here's an example of the poster or the art that I made that features like the Resistance on one side and the First Order on the other, and it has Rose in there. And he's like, hey, don't worry, there is an early version where I was waiting on reference for Rose and others, and that's why she's not on there. And somebody responded to him and said, you're lying to us, Brian. The very early version without Rose features in an official calendar, blah, 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 and he's like, then showed like the receipts, as we say on Twitter or whatever, where he's got like the Photoshop, metadata showing like when he made one version and when he made the other. And like basically what he was saying is that there are multiple versions of all these assets, and then the people who make the products like have access to at different times different versions of things. And so again, I think sometimes there's a let's not feature Rose thing going on, and I think other times there's a I don't know, I'm going into this pool of stuff and grabbing what's there. Because, like, who knows when they start making various versions of products? Like, when do they make the poster versus when do they make the T-shirt versus this company's doing something and they're starting to work on it and putting the product together in April. And, like, his image didn't even feature Rose until May because he didn't get the reference of Rose until May. So, it's not that the problem doesn't exist and that it's not legitimate, because I think it absolutely is. But at the same time, like, every product not featuring Rose being an instance of like Disney hates Rose and they're suppressing her is like a little bit of an simplification I think of what's happening too. So
Yeah, I think that's definitely true to a point. I think the Brian Rude thing was like super enlightening, and also like he was such a good sport about it
yeah,
too. Like where people kind of lashed out at him, and I think like he respected the where that anger was coming from, and also like clarified things. And so like shout out to him
mm-hmm.
for that, because that can be challenging. But I think like in regards to this, like the rebel shirt, I think like yeah, you can like order the you can what it's like you can order the rose one, that variation online, but uh that's not the one that was like in the Disney store when I went. So
Yeah, but was like did the Disney store ever like advertise that they were selling the version with Rose, or is it just that people have seen a version of that art that features Rose, and so like now Disney store did something wrong because the version that they're selling doesn't have Rose on it? You know what I mean?
no, I'm just saying like the facts of it. Like you go into, I mean, the Disney store, and I mean you go into any store right now, and there isn't product with Rose on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like across the board. Like I mean, I got the shirt that has Claude instead of Rose. I could have bought this Rebel shirt, but it wouldn't have had Rose. There was no Rose Black Series figure, no Rose, Galaxy of Adventure figure, no Vintage Collection figure. Like, yeah, I mean, literally the only Rose product released was the Funko Pop. And so then again, like kind of coming back to the issue of screen time and like marketing and stuff, like people also pointed out like, where's Hux? So again, another character who's probably going to be important to the story, but there's no product for him out there right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're talking toys and like product, like actual physical product, that's again, not to minimize the fact that like there are real reasons why Rose would be left out and other characters wouldn't, and I'm not like trying to be so naive as to suggest that that's not true, because believe me, I know that's true, and I think it's a problem. But at the same time, like, you want to talk toys, there's barely anybody of any, I mean, like, you get Rey and Kylo, and if you're lucky, you'll get somebody else tossed in there. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we got a Galaxy of Adventures Finn. That's cool. There's no Finn Black Series. There's no Finn Vintage Collection. And part of the reason is because those figures existed in the Last Jedi line, and so they don't need to be in Wave 1, because you can still... I was at the Disney store yesterday, and they had 1 million Rose action figures that you could buy on clearance because, like, they already made them. And don't get me wrong, I mean, they make a Rey and they make a Kylo in every line, like, so they could make another Rose too, but I don't think she was one of the more popular action figures. And you can get Rose Black Series, and you can get Rose 3 3/4. So the idea that like, oh, well, they didn't put Rose in Wave 1 of the Rise of Skywalker figure collection, I mean, it really wouldn't make sense for them to do that with that. I think the issue on like, promo images and stuff is totally different. But as far as like toys go,
yeah,
I mean, honestly, what is the argument for making a Rose toy at this point in the product cycle if they're only making like 4 figures per line? Like, they don't have anyone, and we haven't even seen her. And maybe this is the larger problem. We haven't seen any promo images of her. We haven't seen her in a trailer. We haven't seen her at all. So clearly, she's one of the characters that either has not a lot of screen time, or they're holding her back as far as like promoting her.
That's not true though, because we have seen. She's got a new look. She's got a new rank. She's got a new outfit. Like, her hair's different.
But we've only just started to actually officially see that in the stuff that's like, coming out right now. Versus all these other characters like we saw in April. And like, I mean, maybe stuff has leaked of Rose before this weekend, but like, she wasn't in Vanity Fair. Like, there hasn't been anything official for her until just now. So
yeah, I mean, but there's but like I mean, I think like it's super noticeable. I'm reading Spark of the Resistance, the Justina Ireland young adult book, which is super fun. And there's like this, there's Phil Noto art of Rose in there because she's one of the starring characters of the book, and it's like her new self, I guess. And so I think she is a changed character, and she is she's different enough to like necessitate like new product for her, in the same way like Kylo Ren just has like a new helmet, like I mean, but also he is one of the protagonists of the film, so I think like and I think this is kind of coming back to that issue, like screen time, product time, that's going to be a factor with many characters in this. The fact that we've seen multiple versions of some of the promotional images and stuff where she's swapped or just photoshopped out, or
but you say that, but like the Brian Rood example like suggests otherwise, because like this person who's responding to him and lying and telling him he's lying because they photoshopped like Rose out of that image, like he's saying, no, I made one that didn't have Rose and then I made one that did have Rose. So like why couldn't the poster be I made one that didn't have Rose and then I made one that did have Rose? Like we assume that for sure they took Rose out and replaced Rose with Claude, but like how do we know that?
Well, because the original image had Rose in it. The one that's hanging on my wall has Claude in it.
Well, what makes one the original versus the other is what I'm saying. Because one leaked.
Because we saw one first.
On making Star Wars. But I mean, that doesn't mean it was like... nobody put that out until this weekend. It was not officially like... You didn't see it anywhere until this weekend. So I'm just saying like... that's what this person is telling Brian Rood in this tweet thread too. You're lying because I already saw the other one that has Rose or whatever, and then this other one doesn't, so you're lying about it. And he's like, no, I can prove to you that I'm not lying about it, but like...
Right, but I'm saying the choices that they made, because there's another shirt too that has like this really great, I don't know who the artist is, but it's the one with like Rey standing in front with BB-8 and Dio, and you see like Jenna and Poe and Finn and Chewbacca, and then Rose is in it. And then you like look at what the actual t-shirt is, and it's Chewbacca's replaced with Zori Bliss. Cool. But then like Rose is just completely gone. And I think that like there's a lot of factors and a lot of choices that go into these things. And I think there's probably, someone... saying like, okay, we want to get Zori Bliss in here, but we can't have a Star Wars shirt with too many women on it or something, so we need to take one of them out. Like there's like reasons for this, and I think like a lot of those reasons are, I'm not saying like people who the marketing people are racist or misogynist or anything, but I think there is like a pragmatic view that in the marketing that comes from like systemic issues in our society and within the fandom, and like I think there's some like I don't know like, and I don't like, it's not as extreme to say like whitewashing or something, but like this is like, in some cases, this is a thing that's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I just think that it's easy to, or some of us will sort of look at it and say, okay, well, there's a couple of instances in which, Rose was in something and was removed from it, or, this kind of like key art or whatever that exists in one format, doesn't feature her in another format. Like, there are legitimate examples, no doubt, because there's too many things that don't have Rose to say, like, in none of this did they ever, like, consciously remove Rose. I'm sure they did, or consciously choose not to include her in certain products or whatever. Like, I'm not saying that that's not the case, but what I am saying is that I think, to a certain extent, like, we might identify that with certain things, and then now all of a sudden every product that doesn't feature Rose is like an example of, you know, they're consciously leaving her out, or they're making this choice not to include her. And I think it's like a little more, you know, in certain cases, like, yeah, they probably should have featured her in there and very well could have, but inherent biases and, you know, whatever else, like, led to them removing her. But then I think in just like a lot of other cases, it's sort of she's not in there because she's not as important of a character, or I shouldn't say as important of a character, but not as featured of a character, you know, and they're only going to go with a certain number of them. And so that's what it is, you know, but
yeah. And I think, like, this has been, this has been kind of like an under the surface issue, for, you know, 2 years now. Like, I think, you know, people really, I mean, we recorded an episode about this with Laura, and, you know, like, actually, and I think, like, that would be something good to link in the show notes here, is that episode, and to see, like, what, a character means to, you know, like, an Asian American woman, like, what that character means to them, because it's a very different perspective than, like, two white dudes sitting here talking about it. And I think there's been concern that, you know, like, that was, you know, like, Rian Johnson really went to bat for her, and then, you know, there was, like, all this you know, backlash from, like, racist, misogynist idiots towards her character. And then, like, oh, well, now JJ's coming in and he's got to try to, like, please everyone, so he's going to, like, you know, reduce her role or whatever, not have her in there. And, like, I mean, there was definitely that there were people, like, worried, like, what if Rose isn't even in episode 9? And then we got that relief when, you know, JJ came out and he's like, you know, one of the best things that Rian Johnson did was introduce Rose Tico. Like, she's in Rise of Skywalker. You know, like, that was really reassuring for a lot of people. And then now we're, like, getting this point that, like, I mean, we talk through some of the situations. There's a lot happening there. It's not really like, it's not really like a case of, like, a conspiracy or anything, but there is, like, the bottom line fact that there's not much Rose merchandise on Triple Force Friday. And, like, that's just how it is. There's, you know, there was a shirt and a poster that one version of it has Rose on it. The version that's available in stores does not. It has a Slugman instead. And I mean, literally the only product I've seen with Rose is, you know, the Funko Pop, which, you know, we were talking about this earlier. Say what you want about Funko, but they do have, like, a more diverse, a more broadly stretching coverage of characters, because they basically make Funkos for literally everything and everyone. So, like, you're able to get, like, your favorite characters in Funko form more often than not. And I think, like, that's like, frustrating and concerning for people, and I think it's, like, pretty disappointing and pretty valid.
Yeah. Well, sure. I I think that the reaction to Rose in general is like unquestionably, like if you're talking about that whole 2-year period and the backlash at Kelly Marie Tran and the backlash towards the movie and the fact that a certain segment of the population, like when they start complaining about The Last Jedi or modern Star Wars or whatever, like Rose always comes up as if like, you know, it's a terrible character or something. Like the genesis of that is clear. The intention of that is clear. You know, that's what we call racism. And like, I don't think it's like a stretch to call it that at all. I think that's clearly what it is. And I think that like the reaction to that character is ugly and embarrassing on a lot of levels, which is why we did that episode last year with Laura. And I think we see that. I think we definitely see that reflected in some level in the product and that kind of thing that's coming out. I just think that like you know, some examples are you know, more egregious than others, I guess, you know, like I really wouldn't expect a Rose action figure at this point, kind of in general. But, you know, not seeing her on t-shirts and posters and things, I think is a little more of a controversial is not the right word. It's, it invites criticism, more than like not seeing toys, you know? Like Funko, they make everything, as you said. So, you know, we could say like, oh, well, props to Funko for making a Rose Tico. I mean, I'm glad it's out there. If people want, you know, Rose merch, that's awesome. But I don't know. I think the toys is a totally different issue. The artwork, the t-shirts, the posters and stuff, you know. And you know, maybe it's a case because I kind of like, you know, played devil's advocate or whatever, or said like, hey, well, look at this, you know, poster that Brian Rood made. It has Rose in one version and not the other. So, you know, should we assume that, you know, intentions were nefarious or whatever? Well, maybe not, but maybe we should assume, or not assume, but maybe we should push that. Hey, think a little more when you're deciding on which version to actually produce and put out to market, and actually, you know, ask yourself the question as somebody who's producing the product or whatever. Should we put out the version with the slug man, or should we put out the version with, you know, the character that might be someone that would be inspiring to, you know, a lot of people in a market that's you know, not being served super well or whatever. So, but all right, well that's quite a lot on that issue, I guess, and probably as much insight as we're going to bring to it, but. Unless you have anything else. But
yeah, I mean, we'll include the links to the link to the article. We'll include the I mean, within the article there are the links to some of the tweets and examples, and then we'll also include the Brian Rood part, and then we'll also include a link to our episode with Lauren, and which is one of my favorite Blockade Runner episodes. Yeah, the one about Rose. So
yeah.
So yeah, but just something like to be aware of, and like it's always, you know, it's interesting to me to see like, you know, stuff from like different perspectives than my own, and like how, you know, how the lack of this character, like, I mean, yeah, like, I wouldn't have even noticed this probably if other people who were like more invested weren't noticing it. And I think like that's really important to like my place as like a fan and just like as a person to you know, be able to get those perspectives. And so like I really, you know, I appreciate the people who you know, are bringing this issue to like the forefront of fandom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would certainly like to see more Rose Tico, because I love that character. I love that character in The Last Jedi. I love Kelly Marie Tran. And yeah, I'm hoping for big things from Rose in the movie, you know. And hopefully I am, independent of this conversation, I am kind of disappointed with the Triple Force Friday like product stuff, like in general, you know. and am hoping for more waves and more like excitement related to the Rise of Skywalker in terms of like product and marketing and things like that. And you know, I'm not going to say that I think it will happen, because that would be kind of naive, probably, unfortunately, with the reality of it. But I would hope that in the next 6 months of like Rise of Skywalker merchandise, there's the opportunity for more Rose stuff, and that Rose will be featured more like across the board in products and things like that. But I don't know. We'll see. It's hard. That's hard to say. It would be nice.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And she's not the only character that I think we're hoping for more from.
Oh,
but yeah, because there's a lot of characters in Rise of Skywalker, and there's a lot more that we need to see. And one place where you can see Rose and many other characters are in the cardboard character standees, which I was not expecting this character standees from Advanced Graphic to reveal so many characters and so many characters' new looks in Rise of Skywalker and beyond.
Yeah, so who are the exciting new characters that are revealed here, Ryan, would you say? Or the new looks, I guess.
I think we get a really good Billy D here that gives like a really clear picture of him and his character. I think, is this the first time we're seeing the cane?
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Okay, because the cane was, you know, that was new to me.
Okay.
This is the first place that I saw Rose's new look.
Yep.
With like, she's no longer in her you know, mechanic jumpsuit. She's in what is her title? Because she got, at some point between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, she got a promotion. I don't know if she's commandant.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. How would we know? Like, what have they revealed about this character at all? You know what I mean? Like, it's probably all just leaked information or something, because like
basically,
they really haven't said anything about her, which is, you know, unfortunate. But like, I don't know anything about Rose in this movie besides like from what I can piece together based on like this picture. And, you know, I think somebody maybe in an interview or something, JJ or like maybe Kelly Marie Tran on that Triple Force Friday stream or something kind of hinted at it or whatever. But as far as I know, there hasn't really been any real movement on that issue.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's cool to see her like in a new outfit, new hair, new, looking very determined, very, strong, like,
yeah, well, she's got a blaster and she looks like she's more like there to fight, you know, which really wasn't her character in The Last Jedi so much. So
yeah, so it's like finding a sense of purpose.
Yeah, and her outfit looks pretty similar to, like, in terms of like the type of like fatigues or whatever and colors and stuff as Poe especially, and also Finn too. So kind of puts her firmly in that, you know, kind of mix, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. And then we get Dominic Monaghan's character. Not a Knight of Ren.
No, not a Knight of Ren, no.
He is looks like just like a resistance, like, grunt.
Yeah.
Like, he's boots on the ground.
He's probably like a Snap Wexley level character, I would say, in the movie.
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah. Probably not a huge role or anything, but a friend of JJ, so he's in there, which is cool.
Yeah, yep. We get Naomi Aki, Jana. She's in there looking just awesome. I mean, we've kind of seen her design. She's shown up on some of the merchandise. There's in some of the promo art, she's on like the poster and the t-shirt that I bought. Which is cool. Still we're getting a Black Series figure of her. Probably next wave, I believe.
Yeah.
Next wave when we get like the 3PO with Babu Frick. Very exciting wave.
Yeah, it is. But again, there's another really weird thing. Like, oh, let's do this Triple Force Friday live stream event and show off a bunch of stuff that's not even going to be available on Triple Force Friday, but we're not going to let anybody know it's not available on Triple Force Friday. So, like, if you watched that thing and you don't live on the Yakface forums or whatever, you probably went to Target or one of those stores expecting to see, like, a Janna Black Series figure or a 3PO with bandolier. And, like, I don't think there's any chance of that stuff showing up for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So...
I was looking for the pop-up book and then realized that doesn't come out until the end of the month.
Oh, is that
But
right?
it was, like, prominently featured on the Triple Force Friday stream.
How about the sticker book? I want that sticker book.
Ooh.
I don't know. The next
okay.
one is it Bulio?
Bulio! Dude, and seeing, like, are you clicking on this picture and just, like, is it just me or does Bulio seem like he might be kind of a goof?
Yeah, he seems very happy. Bulio seems very happy.
I see, like, at first I was like, oh, he looks like because you see the horns and stuff, and, like, what we had seen, I was like, oh, he looks like a tough, no-nonsense alien. But then, like, you click on this, and, like, he looks like a goof.
Yeah.
So very excited for Bulio.
He looks fun.
We got a new Mancala character. Do we know anything about this dude?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No,
I don't.
He looks great though. I like him.
Yeah. No, he's like his expression is like the opposite of Bulio's here. He is like extreme frown.
Yeah.
Then we have Claude.
Yeah. Then you have Claude. Yeah, and he's kind of the last like really like new. The rest of these are kind of we've seen these people for the most part. So, but the prospect of owning that big Claude, cardboard standee is pretty enticing, I think.
Yeah, like where do you buy these at?
I don't know.
I don't feel like I ever see these in stores.
Oh no, not in the store probably, unless it's like a real specialty type store, maybe Amazon.
Yeah. Okay, then moving past Rise of Skywalker, there's one more I wanted to share here.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is Nick Nolte's character from The Mandalorian.
Yeah. He looks a lot like Nick Nolte. I mean...
He looks like Nick Nolte.
I mean, because he is, but, if you made Nick Nolte into a Star Wars alien, or Nick Nolte into a Star Wars alien, this is what you get.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Yep. I like that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, cool. So, yeah, those are fun. Probably have to order them on, like, Amazon.com or something, I would assume. But, yeah. So, okay. Well, we're running long. We're definitely running long, Ryan.
Yeah. Remember when you were like, we should also cover season 1 or season 2, episode 1 of Resistance this episode?
It's out. I could have watched it this morning. It's on YouTube TV on my app. I guess it's not on Disney Plus is the what I was seeing on Twitter. It doesn't look like it's on Disney Plus.
Well, wait, who has Disney Plus?
Not Disney Plus. Disney Now. Sorry, the Disney Now app.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's for sure
it's
not on Disney Plus.
Yeah. It's not on my DVR either.
Okay.
It's recording at 3:59 p.m.
Well, but you have like actual TV, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it has not aired on actual TV yet, but through the streaming stuff,
so that's
it's kind
not
of
happening.
So yeah, we couldn't have done it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk New York Comic Con happening right now. There was a Lucasfilm Publishing panel. Let's just quickly go through some of the news from there. Project Luminous.
Yeah. I'm losing excitement for Project Luminous with every passing moment, I have to tell you. They've been talking about it for 6 months. Now I know it's going to feature IDW and Del Rey and Marvel and the book companies. And it's featuring like original trilogy quotes. And I'm just starting to lose my interest in Project Luminous. So I think it's a case where they revealed it a little earlier than they should have because the more times they go to events and say, Project Luminous is a thing we're doing and we're not telling you anything about it, but you should be really excited, the less excited I get, to be honest.
Yeah, I've seen that yellow text on a Starfield 3 conventions now with still no information, but we did get this has been the best tease.
Oh, I hate
they
it.
They should have just started with this.
I hate it so
this
much.
This is how they should have revealed it. The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things until Project Luminous.
Why does that excite you? Just because it's intriguing?
Because
like mysterious?
it's mysterious. It's we know now that Project Luminous is, we kind of assumed, because like luminous beings are we, like we knew it was going to be something around the Force,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be like a deep dive, a study of the Force, or like that's going to feature prominently into the story. And now we've got this tease until Project Luminous. Why does this not excite you?
Well, I'll try to be brief because we got to make this brief. But basically, like, to me, it stinks of sometimes with like the comics or the books and stuff, they will do these like crossover events, or they'll do like some, new book or whatever, and make it seem like it's going to be this really big deal that's going to like change things. And then like it doesn't, and that's fine. But like, I just don't like it being overhyped, And so when it says like, the Force is what gives a Jedi his power, it's an energy field created by all living things. Like, that is like the foundational statement of Star Wars. And then they're like, until this thing with like Marvel Comics, like, oh my God, it's going to really shake things up. And it's just like, to me, it's like, no, it's not, Like, so for instance, if they had the Sana, or what's her name? Han Solo's wife, what was her name?
It's Sana Solo.
Was it Sana? Sana Staros,
Yeah.
Was that what it was? And then
Staros, yeah.
But then they called her Sana Solo. But anyway, that whole thing, it was fine. It was a comic book. I wasn't mad about it when it happened. A lot of people were mad about it when it happened. I wasn't mad. I thought it was kind of fun, actually.
It ended up being a good story.
I agree. But what I'm saying is that if they had tried to like hype that up beforehand, but like, oh my God, you thought you knew about Han Solo until he had a wife, and then it was like, like, don't make that into a big deal before I read it, because like it's probably not going to be a big deal. And this could be awesome. I'm not saying Project Luminous is not going to be awesome. What I'm saying is I don't know anything about it, and like the way they're hyping it up is I think, just based on past experiences, I feel like it's going to like be setting up to be a very big deal, and it probably won't be a very big deal. Like, in terms of, I don't know. That just irritates me. That tagline irritates me. Like, you thought you knew thought you knew the Force, but you didn't know the Force, because now Marvel and IDW have some comic books coming out. It's not going to change my understanding of the Force. It's not. So don't hype it up that way. That's my personal curmudgeon-y. I'm on Octo being pissed off about this Project Luminous tagline.
Yeah. You should probably just cut yourself off from the Force and never consume any more Star Wars media again if you just want everything to stay exactly the same as it was 40 years ago.
Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I know it's going to stay the same as it was 40 years ago, but they're pretending it's not in that tagline. That's what I don't like.
Okay. Yeah, but like... Okay, but... even if it like barely moves the needle, or even if it's more of like oh, this is happening, oh, it got solved, like, kind of thing, like, I think it's cool conceptually
we don't even know what it is. How can it be?
Yes, I know what it is conceptually. It is called Project Luminous, and it's this tagline, taken from like A New Hope, and then this is going to be a project that challenges what we know about the Force, and it's done by some of the best writers in Star Wars. And so I know it's going to be super well done. It's going to tell great stories, which is what we're here for. Is great stories, not like, and if it like doesn't have like a huge effect on, the future films or anything, like, fine, like, as long as I got good Star Wars stories.
Yeah, I don't even want it to have a big impact on future things. I don't know. I guess I'm just grumpy.
I mean, people would be mad either way.
I would be mad if it had a big impact on future Star Wars stuff. I would be mad. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So what? I mean, it's like it really comes down to, do you want good Star Wars stories or not?
I do.
Like,
I just don't want them to be advertised with like overly hyperbolic taglines. That's all I'm saying. Too hyperbolic.
Okay. Well, then
Not
if
going to
it was
deliver
just
on
like,
that. Not going to deliver on that quote.
Okay. Well, would you rather they like just didn't hype it up and then
Yes, I would rather
you were like,
I would rather they not start talking about it 8 months before they even announce what it actually is.
That's fair.
I'm irritated
that's
by
why
Project
I'm saying,
Luminous.
Like, they should have started this. This should have been the first time we heard
Thank
about
you.
Project Luminous.
Yes, then I might be like, okay, well that sounds kind of dumb. Like not the project, but like that tagline's kind of dumb. But okay, I'm curious. Now I'm like, I was already annoyed by the fact that you keep like putting desktop folders on your Mac that say Project Luminous just so you could be like, don't think you're going to hear anything about it because it's so mysterious. And it's like, there's no way it can deliver on how much hype they're like building around it, is my feeling.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I think this is going to deliver. These are going to be great Star Wars stories by Claudia Gray, Justina Ireland, Daniel Jose Older, Kevin Scott, and Charles Soule. These are going to be great ass Star Wars stories, and it's going to, it's going to be cohesive. It's going to, be focused on a certain area of Star Wars that's really exciting, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, also we can tell from this list of names that it's going to be an adult novel, a like middle grade novel, one other kind of like, I don't know, like an adult novel, like a sort of middle grade or like young adult novel, and then like a middle grade novel probably, and then a comic from Marvel and a comic from IDW, right? It's pretty much what we got, like 3 books, and then
possibly, but I mean,
well, I promise you, Kevin Scott is doing the IDW comic and Charles Soule is doing the Marvel. It's got to be
okay. I mean, yes, that's likely, but Kevin Scott just did, Dooku Jedi Lost, which is an adult novel and audiobook.
Yeah, but IDW's name is on this announcement.
Don't pigeonhole him. But
I'm not saying he can't do anything else. I'm saying that if IDW is doing something and Kevin Scott's name is on there, he's the one who's doing it. Especially when listed with these other names,
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It's actually even in the same order as the thing at the end. Like the last thing on the bottom is Marvel, and the last name is Charles Soule, and the second to last name is Kevin Scott, and the second to last logo is IDW. Like it lines up perfectly.
Sure,
that's what we're getting.
That's fair. That's fair. It's gonna be awesome.
All right. Also gonna be super awesome. The Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy by Timothy Zahn. In case 8 books about Thrawn already weren't enough, we got a whole nother trilogy. Cannot wait.
Tell us how you really feel.
Apparently it's going to be in the unknown regions, so I guess that's cool. And you never know, like we can start speculating for the next 6 months about how Ezra's going to show up in the book, which I mean he's probably gonna, right? Actually, no, he's probably not, because I think I've heard Timothy Zahn say that like Dave Filoni has told him like you don't get to touch that stuff, like because we're going to do something with it eventually.
Great.
Yep. How do you feel about Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be honest. Like, the Thrawn books are not for me. I love and appreciate Timothy Zahn, and like, thank you, Timothy Zahn, for like saving Star Wars. Basically, like you and Weston Games like did it. You kept, the Star Wars fandom alive. The original Thrawn trilogy was a lot of fun. Back in the day, those books are so important. They're the foundation that like all of this publishing is built upon. I don't like these new Thrawn books. They're like probably my least favorite of the new canon. I just don't really like the character of Thrawn. I like just the like, and I guess the same way, like I don't really like Sherlock Holmes. Like I don't really just like reading about someone who's like smarter than me, and like the whole book is just like, but
yeah,
this was the 4-dimensional chess I was playing the whole time, and like that's just, it's not like really an entertaining read for me. And I think like I don't like his interactions with other characters. I just don't really like it.
Yeah, same. I mean, I would be more into it if it was one book. Like if the whole Thrawn trilogy that just came out was like one book instead of three, which to be fair, I've only read the first one and not the second and third books. But like one of those books, I think I would have been a lot more excited about. And then same thing with this. If they were like, oh, the Thrawn Ascendancy, read about it in one 300-page book, I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Instead, they're like, read 900 pages about the Thrawn Ascendancy. And I'm like, yeah, that does not appeal to me all that much. But I'll probably read them at some point. I don't know. But
yeah, I actually, I think I've said this on here before. I actually enjoyed the comic adaptation a lot more.
Yeah.
And I hope they just continue to do that with all of the Thrawn books.
Yeah.
So that, like, that's enough Thrawn for me. Give me 6 issues that I can read in an hour.
Yeah.
And then, like, okay, that's good. I'm good on, like, Thrawn. I shouldn't say, like, I dislike the character. I think the character's cool and interesting in, like, a larger picture. I don't love, like, just being focused on him for, you know, reading a book for over the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, just being focused on him and, like, his machinations and stuff. Like, and I think, like, I think that's, like, kind of true with, like, just about any character. Like, it's kind of weird that, like, the Thrawn stuff is, like, there's just so much of it, like, focused on one character. I mean, like, if there were 2 trilogies about, like, the Emperor, I don't think I'd really like that. Like, I don't think I'd really like 2,000 pages about Palpatine. I mean, there's probably not, like, a ton of characters that I'd be into that for.
Yeah.
Maybe Qui-Gon being the exception. I would definitely read 2 Qui-Gon trilogies.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, possibly.
I don't know either.
It kind of comes down to the whole Rise of Skywalker conversation about the length, though. It's like, you know, do I want it to be 2 hours and 20 minutes, or do I want it to be 3 hours? Or do I want it to be 3 hours and 30 minutes? Or at what point does too much of a good thing become too much? You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I have a feeling they might announce the runtime as, like, closer to 3 hours, and, you know, that'll be okay. It'll probably be cool. But, like, I don't know.
I think it's totally different. I mean, with Rise of Skywalker, you're like, I mean, there's so much to go there.
Yeah.
Like,
but I'm
mean,
just saying that
so many stories.
I'm just saying no matter how good something is, like, at a certain point, like, it's just too much. You know what I mean? It's too long. Like, I don't know. I hear some people argue that, like, they should have made the sequel trilogy not a trilogy, but just made sequel movie after sequel movie after sequel movie until it got stale or something, or I don't know. Like, why tell Rey's story in only 3 movies? And to me, there's something about the brevity of that I like. And yeah, I'm sure there is a lot more you could do with these characters, but also, like, if you tell me from the outset, like, hey, here's these new characters, Rey and Kylo Ren, I'm going to serve you their story in, like, 7 or 8 movies, and, like, you know, stay really excited about what's going to happen in each one, even though you know you're not going to get to the actual conclusion of their story for 12 years or something. I don't know. That doesn't work as well for me. Like, no matter how good each movie individually would be or whatever, like, at a certain point, it's just, like, too much is too much. So, yeah, I think that's a factor with Thrawn myself, but they must sell well. People must be having an appetite for them, and, you know, there's the potential for some exciting stuff there because it's going into the unknown regions. So it's certainly not the announcement I was, like, really geared up for coming out of New York Comic Con, but we'll see what happens. I don't want to be totally negative about it. I am excited for the Rise of Skywalker novels and junior novel, or novel and junior novel. Ray Carson doing the adult version, or the not adult version, but the full-on novelization, and then Michael Kogi, who's done most of the junior novels, I think, doing the Rise of Skywalker junior novel.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Ray Carson to be doing this. I think she's a great choice. I love her novella in the Canto Bight book, which is one of my favorite Star Wars books ever. And then Most Wanted,
Yeah.
the solo like young adult spin-off prequel, I guess, was fantastic.
Yeah,
as well.
Most Wanted was good for sure. That was definitely more of a middle grade novel, so it'll be interesting to see kind of like a more, I don't know, adult audience novel from her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she did a story in from a certain point of view or not, but possibly. But yeah,
I don't remember
so,
actually.
but yeah, I mean that's good news. It should be good.
Cool. Then we have some kind of typical, not for us, young kids books here.
Yeah. Use the Force.
Use the Force. Discover what it takes to be a Jedi, and it's like scribbled on a Trapper Keeper, kind of thing. Cool Clone Wars anthology book. I know this was like huge news for a lot of people. Stories set in the Clone Wars, with some returning Star Wars authors and some brand new to Star Wars authors.
Yeah, and it's
which is exciting.
It's from Disney Lucasfilm Press, so probably like a middle grade type thing. Is that what you're thinking?
Probably whatever the audience for the Clone Wars is now. I guess
old people.
Yeah.
Like, well, not old people, I guess, but like
I don't know. I think people in like their 20s.
Yeah.
So yeah, like teens and people in their 20s.
But I'm just saying, like, usually the way they split up the publishing and stuff is it would be like Del Rey doing it if it was like more of a 300-page like full-size novel that they were marketing towards like everyone, versus when Disney Lucasfilm Press does it, it's more for like younger audiences usually. So not to say, like, I mean, I read most of those books for younger audiences. I'm not saying like grown-ups won't like it, but I'm just saying like they do have sort of categories that they put these books into, and this would be not in the, Master and Apprentice and Thrawn category, but more in the Most Wanted or which is fine because Clone Wars is a cartoon for kids. So yes, although and it's
like
coming back, I feel like it's not so much for kids as it is for people who watched it 15 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever and really liked it. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
But it is weird because sometimes you do have those Clone Wars stories that spin out into like a more adult thing, like the Christie Golden book, the
Dark Disciple.
Yeah, which was definitely on like the darker end of Clone Wars content.
Yeah.
But great authors here.
Yes. Okay, Ryan, I am really excited for the next thing, and here's my proposal. I think we should discuss real quickly this Dark Legends book from George Mann and Grant Griffin, and then we should table the comics discussion for next week for a couple reasons.
Okay.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm probably too excited about this comic stuff that it would be another 45 minutes.
Yes. And I'm, for some reason, listeners can tell, I'm sure, that I'm a little ornery today. I am on Octo for some reason. I'm not sure why. And I just might have a better spin on these comics next week than I do today.
Oh, boy.
But also, we're over the 2-hour mark.
We are over 2 hours.
I think I'm going to split this into 2 episodes, but we'll, that's neither here nor there. Dark Legends from George Mann and Grant Griffin. I'm excited about that. This is the Myths. George Mann is the author of the Myths and Fables Star Wars book, which I really liked. I don't think you grabbed that one, did you?
I didn't.
I really liked it. I've heard some kind of like middling feedback from people or whatever. I thought it was fun. And this one is more focused on like scary, or Sith leaning, as the title indicates, Dark Legends. It's more the dark side of things, and
that's exciting to me.
Yeah, I think that could be really fun because the stuff that worked best, I thought, in of Myths and Legends, if that's what it was called, was the stuff that leaned more towards the dark side of things. Like those stories were more fun and more kind of compelling, and so. And the image, the one piece of art that they released with this, which I don't have open in this story, so I don't see it at the moment, but I saw it last night and I thought it looked really cool. So I'm excited for this. It's a different kind of Star Wars book, and and it has some fantastic art there from Grant Griffin. And yeah, I just thought the first one was really good, so I'm excited for this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, there's a bunch of comic news. One thing, Ryan, I feel so weird about this because I was so into Vader's Castle last year, and I went every Wednesday religiously to pick it up from the comic book store, and then I got too busy this week, and I haven't been down to pick it up yet. So I want to get that. And then we also have what's the name of the Allegiances, right? Star Wars Allegiances or whatever, issue 1 that's coming out this upcoming Wednesday. So that'll be out. So I think we should just talk some comics and Star Wars Resistance next week, and whatever else may pop up then too. So
sounds good.
Last thing, I guess we forgot, Alphabet Squadron sequel Shadowfall coming, I think, next summer from Alexander Freed. That's not a comic. That's a book. That was announced. Did you read Alphabet Squadron?
I started it.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking you didn't like that one so much, or it didn't grab you anyway.
It wasn't what I wanted at the time. I think I'll go back to it. There were things I definitely liked about it. I really liked the TIE Fighter comic series. So I'm gonna go back to it. I'm just gonna start it over.
Okay.
At some point.
Okay.
But
all right, cool. Yeah, I want to read that. That's on my to-do list probably for 2020 sometime. So to get to that one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, before we sign out, do we finally just have to talk about the news that we've missed 3 weeks in a row?
Oh my God, the Feige news?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Feige? Is it Feige?
I think it's Feige.
Feige.
It's definitely not Feige. That's for sure not what it is. Ryan. Yeah.
Feige?
I think it's Feige. I hear most people say Feige, and I want to say when he was on the Star Wars show, that's how they said his name, but I have to go back and look, I guess. But anyways, Kevin Feige. Actually, I think it's Feige because 2 different podcasts in my feed the week that it came out had the title for their episode, which I thought was perfect and really good. Triple Force Feige. That was Force Material. Yeah, it was Force Material, and also the Force Cast, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, did that.
Nice.
Triple Force Feige. I'm sure completely independently because it writes itself, but it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to the Star Wars podcast community.
Yes.
Except that one that sucks.
Yeah. Going around sucking hardcore this
dig,
weekend. Yeah. So
dig their hole deeper.
Yeah. Okay. So Star Wars is, Marvel's. Kevin Feige is doing a new movie for a Star Wars movie for Disney, and we knew it for a couple weeks now, but we forgot to talk about it, so we're talking about it now. And
which kind of shows our level of excitement.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, yes and no. It kind of shows our level of ineptitude as well, I guess, and also probably the fact that we'd take a story that we could talk about for 15 minutes and talk about it for an hour, so then we run out of time to talk about stuff, and we get tired and we forget. But anyway, here it is. Here's the quote from Alan Horn. We are excited about the projects Kathy and the Lucasfilm team are working not only in terms of Star Wars, but also Indiana Jones, and reaching into other parts of the company, including Children of Blood and Bone with Emma Watson Fox. With the close of the Skywalker saga, Kathy is pursuing a new era in Star Wars storytelling, and knowing what a diehard fan Kevin is, it made sense for these 2 extraordinary producers to work on a Star Wars film together. Now, this is an article from Hollywood Reporter that goes on to detail all the ways in which Star Wars has struggled since Disney bought it, which I think is kind of dubious, but it's whatever. The point here is that Kevin Feige's doing a Star Wars movie. Ryan, you love the Marvel movies, so how can you be indifferent towards this?
Okay, love is not probably the right word.
Oh, okay.
I see the Marvel movies. I've kept up with it. I love comic books. I love comic book storytelling. I love shared universes. They did it really well.
Yeah.
And it was all done, kind of under Kevin Feige's leadership and vision. So I think he's an extraordinarily talented and also just really real and down to earth person who has a true passion for genre film. I didn't know he was a hardcore Star Wars fan. Doesn't surprise me. That rules. I think he's going to bring a lot of passion and care to, you know, Star Wars. Star Wars. I think he's also been very. Something I appreciate about him is like, despite all the success of the MCU, which is literally unprecedented in like entertainment, like ever, essentially. Uh, Despite all the success, he also has like acknowledged that they have not done a great job with diversity in those films, and it's gotten better in the past few years with Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and everything. But then like you look at like the next wave of Marvel films, and you see a lot more diversity, both in cast, characters, but also in the writers and the people behind the cameras. And I think him bringing those reflections to Star Wars is good, and it's in line with what Disney and Lucasfilm are aiming for, but also sometimes having missteps around, as we kind of talked about with like Where's Rose earlier. Like, I think there's like good intentions there, but sometimes they don't get it all the way right. And I think that's just, I think that's something that's very near and dear to me as a fan, because I know that catering to people like me is not sustainable, and it also doesn't lead to the kind of storytelling I think any of us want, which is like a white male dominant perspective. So I think this is like, again, like he's an older white dude, but I think like he also has a lot of reflections and stuff from his work with MCU that will come into play here. And then again, just like his general passion and care for fictional characters in genre film is just remarkable. So I think this is cool. It raises a ton of questions, but he's a good dude, and I'm glad to welcome him into the Star Wars fold.
Okay, so here's my thing. Yeah, I agree. I think 100% with everything you just said. I don't really love the Marvel movies, but like I like them. It depends on which one we're talking about, I guess. How much I like them versus other ones. So, which is the case with anything when there's like 20 plus movies, I guess. He doesn't write them or direct them, though. You know what I mean? So it's just like he's the producer, and so it'll be interesting to see who he works with. And kind of what kind of story that he ends up doing. I would assume there's obviously like an idea for a kind of Star Wars movie he wants to make, and then he'll hire people to help him do that. But we'll see. So as somebody who's not like a huge fan of all of his movies or anything, or like none of the Marvel movies have really spoken to me on a super deep level or anything. It's just not like a genre that I'm super into. But then like I don't expect, I think, some people are like, oh, well, he makes those Marvel movies, so he'll make a Star Wars movie that's just like all those Marvel movies. I would say one thing I appreciate about the Marvel movies, at least from a little bit of a neophyte perspective or whatever, as somebody who hasn't read a lot of comics, at least since I was a kid, I feel like the reason they're successful, or a huge part of it, is because they really understand like the appeal of the comic books, and they are true to the core of the storytelling and the characters and things from the comic books. And so he's able to sort of take that and make it into a movie or whatever. Well, Star Wars started out as a movie. Star Wars are movies. And assuming he can look at the previous Star Wars movies and understand the core of those movies and what makes Star Wars, the same way he could say what makes a Marvel comic, and like, how do we need to like honor that and preserve that in film form, which should be an easier task for Star Wars because it is a movie to start with, you know what I mean? Then I think potentially you could say this is a guy who knows how to translate something to a film and make it still feel like that thing, that source material. So, I'm positive about it for all those reasons. I will just say, though, that the one thing it does for sure is just cause me to be even more confused about the future of Star Wars films. Because there's the quote there that says, like, Kathy is pursuing a new era in Star Wars storytelling. Well, of course she is, because the saga is wrapping up. But, like, what on earth is that going to be? And I feel like every new announcement just makes me more and more confused. Because, like, the first new announcement was, like, Rian Johnson's doing a trilogy of Star Wars movies. Okay, that's also known as the best news of all time ever. Okay, so cool. Yeah. But then after that, it was like, oh, we're also going to get those guys that did Game of Thrones to do some Star Wars movies. And it's like, okay, how does that work with Rian Johnson's thing? Like, that's interesting. Then they were like, well, we're slowing down on Star Wars movie. Well, that's interesting. Then they were like, also we're putting some Star Wars movies out between 2022 and 2026, and they're going to be from the Game of Thrones guys. And it's like, okay, well, what about Rian Johnson? Then it's Rian Johnson. I mean, this is not really like something from Disney, but I just saw this interview pop up this week from Rian Johnson being asked about Star Wars. He said, this is about The Mandalorian. I've seen some behind the scenes and went to visit the set. It looks incredible and the stuff they're doing is fantastic. But other than that, I haven't read any other scripts and I don't know anything about future movies. Now, part of that is just him being like, I'm talking about Knives Out. Please stop talking about Star Wars, I'm sure. Even though he's a good sport about it. But like that quote is sort of like, well, I don't know anything about the future movies. I don't know. It's just so weird. And then because
I feel like even like there was like a previous Knives Out interview where he's like, yeah, that's what I'm working on next.
Right. But then he started a new production company with Ram Bergman, or maybe not a new production company, but a new deal. And he was like, yeah, we're going to do another movie either like right before I do a Star Wars or in between or something. And it's just like every quote is just, I don't know what's going on. So, I mean, there's a little more to this quote, which I love. He says, talking about what any future Star Wars movies, including his own, would offer fans. He says, for me, I'm just a Star Wars fan. What I want is for people to sit down and watch something we've never seen in Star Wars the universe before, which is what George Lucas wanted in reference to The Force Awakens from the Bob Iger book, but we're not talking about that now. Tell me a great story, something that's going to make me feel like I'm 10 years old again watching the original trilogy. I feel like that's what we all want when the lights go down. So I don't know what's going on with future Star Wars movies. I don't know when they're making a Kevin Feige movie. I don't know when they're making a Rian Johnson movie. I don't know when they're making these Benioff and Weiss movies. Ask me which of the three I want to see the least, and I can give you a very clear answer. But I don't know, and it's the only ones they've actually kind of committed to making, so I don't know what's going on.
Nope.
And we're not going to until next year at the earliest, I'm sure. So I won't worry about it too much, but don't you dare announce Rian Johnson trilogy and then not make it is all I can say on that issue.
Oh, yeah. And we've been like, this is kind of what I was talking about with, that unease that comes from not knowing if something is like something Star Wars is happening or not. That's what I was talking about with like, like with Rose fans being like, is she gonna be in the movie? And like, and then we're sitting here like, is Rian Johnson going to make these movies? Like,
No, that's a great point. That is a great point.
Yeah, I think like, I think both of us are very, very invested in this Rian Johnson trilogy, and like, I mean, it's the number one Star Wars thing that I want, post Rise of Skywalker. And if like the uncertainty around it is like killing me at times.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, the only thing that I feel like is uncertain is the scheduling, I guess, because like I still, even with a quote like that one we just read, I mean, the author of that article, which we'll link to, made it seem like it was an upbeat answer. So like it doesn't read that way really, but the article indicated that he was like in good spirits about it. So it doesn't seem like, oh, I don't know what's going on with that, like it didn't give that impression. I think the uncertainty is like, how does the schedule that they've announced doesn't make any sense, especially with like all and now adding another name into the mix. Like I just don't really understand. But like we just listed like 4 names technically, but three names there. And one of those 3 names I truly believe in as an artist, like an incredible artist. And the other one's like make some good popcorn media. You know what I mean? And like, so yeah, I'm really excited for the guy who I think is an actual artist who's going to make something really brilliant, I don't want to like, oh, Kevin Feige, he's a clown or he's not an artist or whatever. And Benioff and Weiss, I guess I wouldn't say that about either. But, like Rian Johnson you've got like a genius there and then some dudes that make cool movies. Like, let's just make sure we get the one from the genius, please. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at. But we got to go. We got to wrap this thing. It's been a long time happening this morning. It's probably going to be 2 episodes, so you're probably hearing this at the end of the second one. Time to wrap it up, and guess what? Here's my prediction. Next week, we'll be talking about the rumors that are bubbling up all over the place about the Star Wars trailer coming out the next day. In fact, maybe the news will break while we're recording next week's episode that a Star Wars trailer will be debuting Monday night of the following day. But that's just guesswork. But we know we have another Rise of Skywalker trailer coming sometime soon. We think we know. So that's something to look forward to. We're going to talk about Resistance, some comics, and who knows what else next week. So let's wrap it. If you enjoy these really long episodes of laborious conversations about Star Wars, you can find everything we do at blockaderunnerpodcast.com. You can email us at blockaderunnerpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the grumpy dude on the show at Blockade Run, and the upbeat guy you can follow at... That's you.
Brondwarf, BRAWNDWARF, and yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know how upbeat and happy I am all the time. If you follow my Twitter,
these are good days. Okay, so yeah, I guess that's it. We'll be back next week. More Blockade Runner podcast, and thanks very much for watching and or listening. And I just need Chewbacca to come. Like, no, I need R2D2 to show me a Holo vid, or maybe just young people to like knock me out of my grumpy old, all right, bye.
Maybe you just need to go force project yourself to death.